Follow your gut, follow your instincts. Follow the flesh. It's often where your instincts lead. How do you know how to follow what your gut's telling you when you've been so corrupted, so misled, so deceived by the hallucination and planet that we live on and this mirage we're consumed with that we call life, such that if you rely on that gut instinct, what are you really relying on? Your lizard-like brain? Your animalistic tendencies to scratch, claw, and conquer and survive at all costs? That's the trouble with following your instincts when you don't have a baseline, when you don't have some type of anchor that moors you to some ethical, moral foundation of truth and love and healing. And it's really hard. It's really hard to find that. It's hard to find that when what it is that was once written on our hearts, what was once imbued within our genetic code, which we were once born with. The paradise, the Eden of Yahuwah has been torn away from us for our insolence, for our arrogance, for our conceit, for our weakness, for our vulnerability, for our curiosity, for the fact that we were misled and allowed ourselves to be deceived, even though we were promised all things, even though we had everything in Eden. We allowed the serpent to lead us astray. And to what end? What was it that we received from eating from the fruit of the tree of knowledge? What did we actually receive? Did we receive any knowledge worth having? Did we receive any insight that has made us any better off? Did we gain any information or data that has made our lives any better today than it once was? No, we're bereft. We're depressed, anxious, frustrated. We're decadent, depraved, defiled, and debased, and we chase cheap highs, cheap thrills, and cheap titillation. We chase and we cheat. We scratch, claw, cannibalize for dominion, for control, for power over our fellow man. We seek pleasures of the flesh. We are hedonistic and we are gluttonous. Ever since being cast out of Eden, and after Cain smashed in Abel's head out of envy and jealousy, all the worst of us followed Cain out onto the land where Yahuwah had told him, the land will no longer yield its fruit to you. You will be forced to live and survive by the sweat of your brow. And that mantra we mistook for meaning we must claw, scratch, cannibalize, and dominate our fellow man for any scrap or breadcrumb off the table that we can claw at, that we can grasp, but we can put in a stranglehold and claim for our own. Everything that was once good spoiled, rotten because of our own desires, because of our own lusts. And that exists today. A lust for mysterious knowledge, a temptation towards dark arts, a indulgence in everything from immortality to the keys to the universe are dangled in front of us by holy men, wise ones, magi, illusionists, those who claim to have all the secrets should we only bind ourselves to them, yoke ourselves, chain ourselves to these false prophets. And so we wander the earth like Cain, aimlessly, clawing, scratching, cannibalizing, eking out an existence for ourselves. And here's the thing, this is even the face of being given so many chances to come back to Yahuwah. For he loves us. His love for us is so complete, so everlasting, so enormous, so incomprehensible, that he made covenant and covenant and covenant again and again and again, so that we would know the way, the truth, and the life. The covenant with Adam that we broke originally. The covenant with Abraham. The covenant with Noah. The covenant with Abraham. The covenant with Moses. The covenant with Yahusha, Son of the Most High. You have Yahuwah, he who breathes life. Yahuwah, he who breathes into existence. He who creates. Yahuwah, he who brings forth life. And Yahusha, perfect Lamb of the Most High, Son of the Most High. The name means the Most High who saves, the Most High who delivers, the Most High who redeems. The covenant to end all covenants, for he gave us the simple commandment, for which we can actually lay a foundation, for which we can actually have a touchstone, so that we can actually possess an anchor to what is righteous and true. And that is the single commandment that we receive. For he came in blood and water. He came in the flesh. Yahuwah manifested himself in the flesh, saw us for all we were, all our imperfections, lived amongst us, saw our hatred, saw our evil, saw our sin, saw our decadence, saw our depravity, saw our fallibility, but also saw our goodness, saw our love, saw our need for him, the Father, to save us. And he did. Such was his love, so incomprehensible and everlasting and complete and unfathomable, that he would sacrifice everything, and give himself over to be tortured and tormented and murdered as the final sacrifice for our sins. Another sacrifice never needed should we accept the sacrifice, should we accept Yahusha the Son, should we receive the Word, because when we receive Yahusha and his salvation, when we ask for his redemption, we are flooded with the Ruach, the breath of Yahuwah, such that we are saved once and forever, such that we are forgiven in the eyes of the Father once and forever, such that we know the Father once and forever, and such that we have everlasting life, everlasting joy, everlasting healing, everlasting love. Should we confess that Yahusha HaMashiach came in the flesh, that he is the Son of Yahuwah, and in so doing we receive the breath of life, the breath of the set-apart Spirit, the breath of Yahuwah, such that we now have a touchstone. We now have a divining rod. We now have a meter that detects. We now have a compass that points to true north. It sets us out on the path such that we know the way, the truth, and the life. And this path leads, this narrow path, it's emblazoned now with his light. For he is the light of this world, such that the darkness cannot comprehend it, darkness cannot overcome it, the darkness cannot fathom it. So the darkness scatters, and all that is left is light, which bathes us. We're filled with the Ruach, the light bathes us. Yahuwah warms us. He greets us. He loves us. He humbles us with this light. And from within, the Ruach, the breath of Yahuwah, an enormous light, infinite number of rays burst forth from us, healing us from the inside out. And the same light of Yahuwah, the light of this world, blasts forth on that narrow road. It's emblazoned, it's illuminated. You cannot help but see it now. Once you're saved, you receive the Word, and you cannot miss this path. Such that, though you are imperfect, though you make mistakes, though we might sin, we no longer stumble forever in the darkness. It's easy to see now, and we're guided, like that compass that points true north. We are guided, and although we may stray here and there, it will be only for moments, as we are instantly compelled, instantly pulled back onto instantly guided back by the Ruach, the breath, the set-apart spirit of Yahuwah, to be able to walk this narrow path, because now we can follow our instincts, because now our instincts have been purified of our lizard brain, of our clawing and scratching and cannibalizing, of that animalistic instinct to conquer our fellow man, to claim dominion, to crush all those in front of us such that we can get to the top of a mountain only to find that we're at the bottom of another, force like Sisyphus, to constantly push that boulder forever up that hill till it gets to the peak, and then what happens? Rolls back down once again, doomed forever and ever to be on that hamster wheel, that endless treadmill. It never ends. We're constantly searching, longing, hungering, thirsting, and we never get the answers we're looking for when we count on our animalistic instincts, because it's depraved, it's defiled, it's debased. It is influenced by the evil one, by the evil whispers of the psychic vampires and the demons of this world, by Hashatan, Lucifer, the haters, the detractors who want to see us rendered asunder for their pleasure, because misery loves company. And so they beguile us, they bewitch us, they influence us, they persuade us to follow the way of the flesh. And so we get lost. And we hunger for more, and it never ends. The hungering, the thirsting never ends. And all the questions you ask throughout your whole life: what is my purpose? What is meaning to this all? Where do I go? How do I navigate? How do I prosper? How do I do so in a fashion where I can truly feel gratified and satisfied and fulfilled? Because you're ever wanting, you're never truly fulfilled. The minute you grab something on this earth, the minute you grab something material, like sand, through your fingers, it falls. Like smoke, when you try to hold smoke, when you try to grab water, it is uncontrollable. You cannot hold on to it. You cannot take it with you. Everything of this earth, everything in the flesh perishes. The one true thing that stays with you is salvation in Yahuwah, Yahusha, because you receive the word, such that you have the compass, such that you can be guided on the way by the Ruach, the breath of Yahuwah. Because in salvation, you receive the word, you receive the Ruach. And the word, what is the word? Well, we know the word. In the beginning there was the word, and the word was with Yahuwah, and the word was Yahuwah, and the word was manifested in the flesh. And Yahusha, the Son of the Most High, is the word manifested as flesh. He is the Alpha and the Omega and the Alpha, the beginning and the end and the beginning. He is all things. And the only way you could fathom this, the only way you could understand this, the only way that you could be set free from this endless treadmill that you never seem to get off of, because every time you search for meaning, you're befuddled, you're frustrated, and you're anxious, constantly chasing your tail. Every time you open a door, you see another door behind it locked. Every time you get a question answered, another question is posed. Every time you get to the mountain peak because you've made some great accomplishment or achievement that you thought would bring you happiness, instead you're at the top of the mountain only to find you're at the bottom of another. It never, ever ends until you receive the word. And the word, Yahusha, is alive in the single commandment, the new covenant, the living law that is written on your heart, no longer to perish. The rules, regulations, and traditions of the Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees. Woe to you Pharisees! Woe to you scribes! Liars, hypocrites, who worship with their lips and not with their hearts. And layer tradition, rule, and regulation after regulation on top of the original commandments, such that there are hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds that is so burdensome that even they will not follow, but they will put this unbearable weight on you. And they will worship with their lips, not with their hearts. And they put this on. No man can study. No man can live their life. No man can be so disciplined, so committed to learning every rule such that they never make an infraction, such that they needed the Pharisees for interpretation, for absolution, for guidance. Usurping the power, attempting to usurp the power of Yahuwah, posing as the gateway to the Father when they are nothing. The only gateway to the Father is through the Son. And these Pharisees, these lying scribes, they live on today. The wise men, the so-called wise men, the holy ones, the false prophets, the magi, the illusionists, the New Age gurus, all of them, the rabbis, the priests, almost all of them are seeking to bind you to their blueprint, to their instructions, to their path, to their guidance, so that you need them for absolution, so you need them for direction, so you need them for interpretation, because they're the so-called experts. When Yahusha gave it to us in our salvation, such that we received the most simple of commandments. He told us you can go right to the source. You don't need the lying scribes. You go right to the source. You don't need the hypocritical Pharisees and the holy men and the so-called wise ones of this world that would lead you astray and deceive you as false prophets. All you need is to go right to the commandments of Yahuwah Yahusha. That in that one single commandment, in our salvation, in receiving the word and understanding the way, the truth, and the life that lives on in the one single fountain from which all good things spring, to love Yahuwah with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love our fellow man as we love ourselves, and therein all other commandments follow, all good things follow, and everything that you can trust in, place your confidence in, and be bold in with Yahuwah is set therein, in that single commandment, to love Yahuwah with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, because in loving Yahuwah with all your mind, heart, soul, and strength, you follow his commandments. Why would you not? Because now where the old law was written on stone, those old rules, regulations, and traditions written on stone, that fades away, that perishes, and that dies, just like everything of the flesh dies and fades, just like the stone, just like the law on the stone, it perishes and fades, and you follow it only because you fear punishment. You follow it begrudgingly, not lovingly, not out of joy, not out of healing, not out of salvation, but because you fear penance. And that's exactly what the stone reveals. The stone reveals sin and evil, infractions, and penance. And so you follow begrudgingly. It doesn't offer you grace. It doesn't reveal salvation. It reveals penance, punishment, and you follow it begrudgingly, not out of nature, not out of love. But the new law, the new covenant, is written on your heart. When you receive it, you have everlasting life, your heart, your soul. And that's where the new covenant lives. Yahuwah Yahusha lives in you. The Ruach, the breath of Yahuwah, lives within you, such that you have everlasting life, and the law that's written on your heart has everlasting life. It is known as the living law, not the dead law, not the dead law that perishes like those that follow it begrudgingly for the sake of punishment, the walking dead, the zombies of this planet. That law is for the unfaithful, is for the unbelievers. They're the ones who need it, for the sinners, for the evil ones who don't repent, who don't seek salvation. For those who do, you receive the living law. And now you follow that single commandment. Love Yahuwah with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your fellow man as you love yourself. And you follow that commandment with love, with reverence, with joy. And here's the thing. In following that commandment, you naturally follow the 10 commandments. Not because you fear punishment. Not because you're doomed to wander around aimlessly. You don't follow begrudge. You follow those 10 commandments because how could you not? You love Yahuwah. You love him with all your... And so we feel as if it's our privilege. It's our honor. It comes now naturally from our heart to follow Yahuwah and those 10 commandments and to love our fellow man as we love ourselves. Imagine how you can nurture and honor his creation. You, us, this body. How you can honor, pay reverence to his creation. Treat yourself right, healthily. You do not defile yourself with depravity and decadence and drugs and alcohol and junk food and toxic chemicals and pornography and all the evils of the flesh, the hedonism, the gluttony, the cheap thrills, cheap highs, cheap titillations that are promised to you by the evil ones of this world that only give you a second's worth of happiness and euphoria and then evaporate from you like the wind, like dust in the wind. It's gone, and you're ever chasing that high, that addiction, that cheap titillation, those cheap thrills, the things that give you nothing but pain and misery and depression and frustration and anxiousness. And your life is made a living hell because you're always in despair, you're always in sorrow, always wondering what your life means, always looking for your purpose. But in the new law, the living law, you find you now revere the creation that Yahuwah has given you, such that you no longer seek to poison it, to deaden it, to dull it, to distract it. Now you feed it energetic, single ingredient, pure, clean, wholesome foods, the foods of Yahuwah, not man-made junk, sludge, toxic chemical-filled substrate that is nothing but absolute poison, and that tears you down slowly. You train, you exercise because you want to be robust and dynamic. Again, because you're paying reverence to Yahuwah. You're keeping this hardware which houses his breath, the breath of life, the breath of Yahuwah. He lives within us in this creation. This is the temple. And so we honor it by keeping it strong. Again, so that we can ultimately, why? Not for vainglory, as those who do so for the pleasures of the flesh, because eating right and training and exercising for the purpose of just looking good in the mirror, that's of the flesh. That's hedonism. But to train and to exercise, to pay reverence to Yahuwah, to pay reverence to the temple, to keep the temple healthy and strong so that you can live as an example for your people. So that you can live as an example for others who need to live, who are decadent and depraved and wallowing in misery and want a better life. You could show them as living for it, not by preaching to them, not by admonishing them, not by punishing them, by simply living as an example so they can see the joy and the health and the robustness and the dynamism that you have now. Living in Yahuwah Yahusha, living the single commandment, living in the word, the way, the truth, and life. They know that if you can do this now, they can do this. And then nourishing the soul with the word, nourishing the soul with his parables, his phrases, his teachings. You don't need any interpreter, you don't need any wise one, you don't need any holy man. You go right to the source. He left us all of his teachings. You go right to the source. How could you even know if one of these Pharisees are telling you the truth unless you put in the work, unless you do the reading, unless you study, unless you nourish your soul? How will you know when a false prophet is doing nothing more than looking to deceive you, persuade you, influence you? But if you make the investment, if you don't count on the fathers and the priests and the rabbis and the holy ones and the magi and the yogis and all of these so-called holy men, if you don't simply rely on them, but you put in the work, you put in the time, and you look and seek to understand, then it'll have resonance, then it'll have meaning. And when someone speaks to you about Yahushua HaMashiach, the Messiah, and when they speak to you about what is righteous and true, sanctified and justified, you'll have a measure of sense about whether or not they're telling the truth, because we are filled with the Ruach in our salvation. The Ruach, the breath, and that compass that points true north on this narrow path that leads to the narrow gates of the kingdom to come, where there is no more evil or sin, where there is no more sadness or hatred, where there are no more demons, or no more psychic vampires, haters, detractors, no more evil whisperers, no more Hashatan, Lucifer. They're all crushed. No more murder or death, no more sickness or disease, no more sadness or hatred, no more war or misery, just everlasting peace, everlasting love, everlasting joy, everlasting healing, and everlasting life. And where Yahusha lives amongst us once again, and we can love, honor, worship, glorify, and praise Him with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, because we are once again perfect like we were in Eden, like we will be with the angels. We will have that perfection such that we can truly live our lives in a manner that pleases Him most, because we now have everlasting life in the great resurrection. But we're paying reverence, we're honoring Yahuwah Yahusha by taking care of ourselves so we can be robust, dynamic, healthy, and strong, so that our souls and our spirits and our hearts can be healthy and strong. And feeding ourselves healthy knowledge, not decadent, depraved entertainment, pornography, worthless, cheap novels and thrillers and things that do nothing but titillate our darkest desires. But no, now we feed ourselves knowledge, wholesome knowledge that allows us to think, to use our minds, to do what? Not for greed, not to overcome, not to overpower, but to help our fellow man, to devise inventions, to devise strategies, to devise ideals, to devise principles, to devise ways of helping them out of the muck and the mire they find themselves in. So if you feed yourself good, wholesome, pure, productive knowledge on how to help your fellow man, if you nourish your soul, if you keep your body strong and healthy, and if you receive the word and live your life by that single commandment, all good things will spring from that. All the nourishment you need, all the mindset knowledge you need, all the inspiration, encouragement you need, all of the training, the physical training, the foods that you need to eat, all will become apparent as you make it a daily practice to get on your knees and to pray to Yahuwah Yahusha and ask for His forgiveness, ask for His redemption. And it is granted instantly. You don't have to beg for it, you don't have to borrow for it, you don't have to go through some magical journey step by step. It doesn't take you decades long or following any blueprint or instruction. One simple thing faith, in all faith in Yahuwah Yahusha, you are instantly saved. By faith alone, you are saved. By receipt of the word, by understanding the single commandment. Love Yahuwah with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your fellow man as you love yourself. That is the fountain. That is the wellspring. That is the core of everything that all good things are drawn from. And you are on your knees asking for that, asking for that. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to ask for that? And to know that it's not a hardship, that the cost is nothing, but the cost is everything. It means surrendering to Him, surrendering to Yahusha, asking Him to help you live your life in a manner that pleases Him most, such that you're guided, asking for His salvation. No longer trying to control every environment, control all people, control all outcomes, control all results, control all variables. Where has that gotten you? It's gotten you nothing but depression, despair, anxiousness, frustration, constantly clawing, scratching, and cannibalizing for power and dominion and the riches and the wealth that this planet offers, which evaporates the moment you get it. And even if it lasts to the end of your life, you're somehow clever enough, crafty enough to hold on to that till you die, you can't take it with you. It's gone, and what are you left with? A barren soul and a dead heart. But here in receiving the word and on praying every day, ruminating so that you can nourish the soul, nourish the spirit by His teachings, by His parable, coming to Him because you know the life you lived. You have anguish and guilt and sorrow for who you were, but you have joy for who you now are and who you want to be, and that's why you ask for that salvation. Instantly you're granted it. Instantly. He floods over you. You receive more than you could ever imagine, such that your cup runneth over and you want to share the good news, and all is revealed, all the questions you've ever asked, all the doors you've ever knocked on, all the questions you've ever had, all the queries, all the wondering, all the longing, hungry, thirsting. You not only receive all that you've ever hoped for, all that you could, because what were you looking for your whole life anyway in these pleasures of the flesh, in the material things of this world, in the wealth and the riches and the accomplishments and the kudos of this world, the esteem of man? What were you looking for? You were really looking for nothing more than joy, healing, peace, solace. You were looking to be alive. You were looking to truly be alive. You were looking to be loved. And in love there is life, and in love there is Yahuwah Yahusha, and in Yahuwah Yahusha there is life, everlasting life. Beginning, end of the beginning, Omega and Alpha, Alpha and Omega, all things. And so in getting down on your knees and praying every day, nourishing your soul with the word, with the good news every day, asking for His salvation, asking for His forgiveness, seeing how you are finally truly grateful for all that you've received, such that your cup runneth over. For the first time ever in your life, you're truly grateful, because for the first time in your life, you're truly fulfilled. For the first time in your life, you're truly alive, motivated, encouraged beyond all measure. And so you're grateful for His blessings. You're grateful for all the bounty that you've received. You're grateful for the word. And then you surrender to Him. And you ask Him to take this burden. He's taken the burden of all of mankind. All the sins we've ever committed, all the sins we were committing at the time of His excruciating murder, all the most tormented of sacrifices that He made. He bore so much pain, so much suffering, and the sin of the world, the unbearable weight of all the sin and the wrath of Yahuwah that was meant for us. He bore all of that. So it's okay, He can take your burden. He sacrificed His love. He sacrificed His life, He gave Himself over so that we could have that salvation. And although we don't deem ourselves worthy of it, He does, and that's what matters. And so we surrender completely, and we stop trying to control everything, and we ask Him to guide us and show us the path to righteousness and redemption, and to lead us so that we can live our lives in a manner that pleases Him most. And leading a life that pleases Him most, all is right in our life, because He is the light of this world, such that the darkness cannot comprehend. And we walk with Him, we walk in the light, we no longer walk in the darkness, we can see. And once you see, you'll never unsee. Once you hear, you'll never unhear. Once you know, you'll never unknow. And so, wherever you are, when you live in Yahuwah Yahusha, when you live in His salvation, you live in His light, all is right in your world. Because you're exactly where He needs you to be. You might think you don't have what you should have. You might think you don't have everything you're supposed to have. You might think your life is not what it should be. But that's because you lived for the flesh and of the flesh. But now being saved, receiving the word, and understanding the single commandment, love Yahuwah with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your fellow man as you love yourself. You know your purpose, you know your meaning. And you know love, healing, everlasting life, everlasting joy, everlasting peace and solace. You have it all now. And so you know that wherever you are, you're exactly where you can serve Him best. You're exactly where He wants you to be. And so when you walk with Yahuwah Yahusha, your life is right. Because when you are with Yahuwah Yahusha, all is right in your world. Because you are right with Yahuwah Yahusha. Alpha, Omega, Omega and Alpha, beginning and end of the beginning. Right? And so now you have the anchor. Now you have the touchstone. Right? He is the cornerstone. He was the stone that was rejected, the stone that became the cornerstone. And the cornerstone that, should it crash upon you, it crushes all sin, but it holds up the foundation of all. The breath of Yahuwah lives within you and guides you. And from that single commandment, all good things come. You need to know nothing else. That's all you need. Upon being granted salvation and receiving the Ruach and living by the way, the truth, and life, you receive the word and you receive the single commandment and you understand it. Love Yahuwah with all your heart, soul, mind, and love your fellow man as you love yourself. And all is good, all is righteous, all is sanctified. Your heart is healed. That endless chasm, that canyon, that wound that is gaping, that you've suffered your whole life is healed, and you feel warm, you feel loving, you feel good, you feel joy, you feel peace, you feel solace, and you understand what everlasting life means because you know where you're headed. You're on this narrow path, but it's easy now. You see it. You wear the armor of Yahuwah, which is faith in Yahuwah, that armor which means the evil ones of this world. You're immune now. You're impregnable, impenetrable. They're spears and arrows and slings. They mean nothing. They can't touch you. The Ruach, the breath of life that bursts forth from you as a force field, a trillion, an infinite number of rays that come off of you and absolutely obliterate all darkness, all sin, all evil whispers, all wayward frequencies, all negative thoughts, all demons that can't even get close to you. Because of this force, because of Yahuwah, because of the breath of, in all faith, we wear the armor of Yahuwah. We wear the helmet of salvation. Just as we are impenetrable, impregnable. And we wield the Ruach, the breath of Yahuwah, like a sword that dissolves all darkness as we walk on this path. Doesn't mean we won't stumble. Here and there now, doesn't mean we won't make a mistake, but the compass, the foundation, you can now trust your instincts because your instincts, your anchor, your touchstone, the cornerstone that is Yahuwah, Yahusha, is central to your life. The breath, the Ruach, the set-apart spirit guides you, and you can trust it now. Finally, you can trust your instincts because it guides you correct, true, righteous, and sanctified on the path. So let us walk stronger than ever, steadfast, unstoppable, unconquerable, undefeatable, unassailable, as we move with speed and grace, relentless and ceaseless. I can see it. I hope you can too. Ask and you will receive instantly. The kingdom come.